In these uncertain economic times, it's easy to be worried about protecting your wealth, your hard-earned savings, and your family's financial future. Plunging interest rates, the devaluating dollar, and political unrest constantly threaten what you have worked hard to earn and all that you own. That's why now it's more important than ever to protect your assets and have the money you need to make your dreams come true. Welcome to the Global Wealth Fortress Report with successful global entrepreneur and wealth preservation expert Joel Nagel. Joel's helped thousands of people just like you protect what you have so that you can make even more and make your every dream come true. So, sit back and enjoy Joel Nagel's offshore expert advice on how you can live the good life at a great price, where the sun never sets on your financial fortress.
Hello. This is Carib Carter Clues, and welcoming you today to the Joel Nagel's Global Wealth Fortress Report, the number one asset protection podcast on the internet, because we have America's number one asset protection attorney. And today I talked with Joel a little earlier and said, let's talk cyber currency. So Joel, welcome to Joel Nagel's Global Wealth Fortress Report. Let's talk cyber currency from where you are in, this time, Vienna, Austria.
Well, thank you. It's good to be with you, Carter. And I think it's our first sort of early spring day here today. Temperatures around 50 degrees and quite nice and sunny. And, I think in some ways, the European countries are a little bit more progressive than the US when it comes to cyber currencies. You see, ATMs, for example, around Vienna for, converting Bitcoin, for example, into cash, and or hotels and restaurants that'll let you pay directly in cryptocurrencies. So, I think it's just a little, I'm sure it'll happen in the US too. It's just maybe a year or two or three behind, but it's interesting to see the phenomenon.
Well, it does seem to be sweeping the globe. I just saw an article. It was today, as a matter of fact, at Yahoo News, called "Which Countries Are Using Cyber Currencies the Most?" Listed the top 10, and number one, 32% of the people of Nigeria are now using cyber currencies. Vietnam, 21%. Turkey, 16%. Peru, right in our backyard here. Folks, this is especially interesting for those of you at the Offshore Club. Peru, 16% of the people there are trading in cyber currency. Switzerland, where you were last week when you joined us, 11%. So there seems to be a worldwide embrace of cyber currency. And I know that you, as a number one asset protection attorney in the US, with some very, very successful clients who have a lot of money, you must get the question from them all the time, Joel, what about cyber currencies, Bitcoin and all the others? What do you give us for free the advice that they are paying for? What are you telling them?
Well, yeah, that's a really great question. It's there's sort of two camps when it comes to, people in the crypto world. I would say the traditional, most folks, particularly wealthy folks, they have their different asset classes. And if they've never been in crypto, now they're doing exactly what you said. They're calling me up and saying, hey, I'd like to get some exposure. Maybe I don't really understand it, but I'd like to figure out a good way to access it, whether it's like a mutual fund or an ETF, or start buying some direct coins directly, whether it's Bitcoin or Ethereum or Solana or whichever coin. But so that's one camp, and that's sort of the traditional group. But now I've started to get another camp of folks contacting me, and these are people who've been in the crypto space, a lot of them since the beginning, going back 10, 12, even 15 years, I think Bitcoin's birth was just over 13 years ago.
Okay.
And, there are people contacting me who got into Bitcoin when it was, still pennies on the dollar. And, if you look at their return on investment, it's, you can't even measure it because it went from a
Phenomenal.
couple of cents to, over $50,000. I think a few months ago, Bitcoin hit its peak at around $66,000.
Yeah.
It's back in the mid 40s right now, but, it's still, so that group are people that were already Bitcoin converts, and they didn't necessarily have a lot of money, but the value of their crypto went up so much that now all of a sudden they were like, hey, I need to talk about asset protection. I need to talk about estate planning. They were kind of dragged into it the other way because it's actually the crypto that made them rich.
Right.
And most of the people that I talk to in the crypto space feel that even though, a lot of these currencies have gone up substantially, that there's still, a massive amount of appreciation ahead. And the reason for it is simple. I mean, the just staying with Bitcoin as the example,
Right.
there's a fixed amount of Bitcoin in the world, right? It's a little over 21 million Bitcoins, and there's 8 decimal places past the one to the right side of the decimal point, 8 decimal places, that the smallest of which is called a Satoshi. And the fact that governments just can't go out and print it, right, in some ways makes it a lot more like gold or other precious metals, right? Because governments can't go out and print those either. So in my world, I see a lot of people, you would think that gold and Bitcoin are diametrically opposed. One's this sort of, aggressive, speculative cryptocurrency, and the other one is this, store of value that's been around 5,000 years. But in some ways, they're very, very similar, and it appeals to a lot of the same people. The other thing I'll just say is that, the market cap of all Bitcoin right now is about $1 trillion. And the market cap of all gold right now is over $20 trillion. So when you compare gold to other things that reflect real value, when you measure it that way, you can see that there is still a long, long way for Bitcoin to go. So yeah, even though it's pushing $50,000 again, a lot of people say that's cheap, and by this time next year it could be 6 figures or beyond. So again, I'm not gonna sell my house and put every cent I have in it, but
Yeah.
I do think that there's certainly a place for it in everybody's portfolio that's concerned about wealth protection. And if you're in the second group I mentioned, for some of those people, I have to twist their arm to do a little diversification into everything else that the rest of us have, like stocks and bonds and mutual funds and gold and real estate, because they're so believing that that Bitcoin is the only thing that they should have their money in. And I say, yeah, but what if it goes back to $5? I mean,
Right.
Things go up, they can go down. So it's not a bad idea to have some diversification. But the last thing I'll just say is that you mentioned some of these countries that are very into crypto, and people would say, like, why Nigeria? Why countries in South America? Why? Well, it's simple. These countries have very high percentages of people that don't have access to the normal standard banks and financial system.
Yeah.
Right.
Precisely.
I mean, 2/3 of the people in Africa and South America don't have access to a bank account.
Yeah.
So with a crypto, you have it on your phone. You want to send a Satoshi to somebody to pay for something, you can do it in 2 seconds from phone to phone. And and for a lot of these people, it's the first time ever they're able to build wealth and actually save, because in the past they never wanted to save. They had crappy currency. They knew that tomorrow the currency was going to be worth less than it is now. We're starting to face that in the US, right? I mean, why would you sit on a stack of $100 bills? Next year they're going to be worth less. We all know that. So you're going to spend it. Whereas with a cryptocurrency, you can spend it or you can save it with the knowledge that over time it's most likely going to be worth more.
It's going to be worth more. And one of the things you taught us early, and folks, a lot of you who have been watching the Global Wealth Fortress Report will remember this. Joel has said early on the importance of a good defense. Okay. And I thought about that when I read a great quote from Warren Buffett earlier, where he said, rule number one is never lose money. Rule number two is never forget rule number one. And you have said similar things. So when people come to you, they are coming to someone who really they rely upon, and rightly so, to protect what they have. So when these people come to you who made early investments that you've just described and very successfully in Bitcoin, then do you have to, let me just ask you straight out, do you have to say to them sometime, hey, calm down a little bit, okay? Calm down. Remember tulips. We all remember tulips. Do you ever have to say that to them?
I do. And again, sometimes I feel like the ones who've gone all in, they've put literally their last cent. I've encouraged them, like, look, you've made, 500,000% on your investment. Like, it's not going to hurt you to take 5 or 10% off the table, right? Put it into some gold, buy a nice house.
Yes.
Maybe access a few stocks and bonds that might help pay income for you. And by doing that, you can actually let the rest of your money ride. With the people coming from the other side, one of the things there is to kind of tell them, because I agree with you completely. I really hate losing money, right? We all know, if you lose 50% of your money, your money doesn't have to increase 50%. It has to increase 100% just to get back to where you were. So I hate losing money. Now, crypto is very special and unique because it is so volatile. And I've seen people, that I tell clients, look, figure out what allocation you want to have to crypto, maybe have a few positions that are diversified within it, stake out your Bitcoin, your Ethereum, whatever it is you want, and put it in your portfolio and literally forget about it. The idea that you should check it every day, you're just going to give yourself an ulcer. It's so volatile, right? I mean, a stock might go up or down 10% in a year, and Bitcoin might go up or down 10% in a day. And, when it's up 10%, don't feel euphoric. When it's down 10%, don't feel like you want to jump off a bridge. And some of the crypto traders that I've talked to have told me, they said, we see people that really shouldn't be in crypto coming in, they buy high. When it goes down, they get scared and they sell, and then they're burned. And then they say, hey, I'm never going to do that again. Like, so it does have the tendency of, scaring off people and burning people. And my attitude there is don't trade it. Just, if you're going to get into it, buy it, hold it, check on it in 6 months or a year. Don't check on it tomorrow, because if you check on it tomorrow, you're either going to be really happy or really upset. And, there's really no need to do either. Just buy it, hold it. And, and if it makes you afraid to do that, there are some good products out there, ETFs and like mutual funds that go into the crypto space, and they do the diversification for you. They do the trading for you. You can just buy their shares and sit on those if you don't want that. But most people want to access. Yeah, most people want to access it and have it. They want to have it on their phone. They want to have it on a little cold storage where they feel it's protected, put it in their safety deposit box, whatever. Just be very careful. Make sure you really understand what it's like to set up a cold wallet, because if you do it and then you lose the access data, there's no backup. There's no help desk. You hear the stories about the guy who had 100 million in Bitcoin on his computer and, threw his computer away. And, now he spent 6 months searching through garbage dumps in, New Jersey trying to find his computer. So, it's a lot of opportunity, but there's also a lot of responsibility, personal responsibility.
Yeah. And I love, that poor guy will never find it. And I love what you said about, if folks, if you have to, one of these people that compulsively has to check it every day, don't buy it and give yourself an ulcer. Warren Buffett, I watched an interview with him where he said, buy your stocks and leave it alone. He said, don't check your stocks every day any more than you would go to the local mechanic and ask him how your car's running that day. He said, you're going to give yourself a nervous breakdown. And you just gave the same great advice. the same great advice. What do you say to people on the other end of the spectrum who you advise on their asset protection, and you say, you might want to look a little into the cyber currencies, just like you've done with gold and other assets, and they say, oh no, that's crazy. What do you say to those at that end of the spectrum?
Well, first of all, I'm not really a salesman. I'm
Right.
not trying to convince anybody of anything, but
Yeah.
I'll tell you a quick story. I was meeting with one of my longtime, extremely wealthy clients. The guy's in his 80s, came to see me before the holidays with his grandson, who was maybe 25. And we were having this conversation. And, he was sort of poo-pooing the whole idea and like this crypto funny money and it's not for me and blah, blah, blah. And I didn't challenge his reasoning, but I turned to his grandson and I said, what do you think? Have you invested in crypto? And he's like, oh yes, he had this and that in small amounts, but he was quite knowledgeable. And then, I went back to the grandfather and I said, look, that's what I'm seeing even with my own kids. Like they're a lot more interested in buying crypto than they are in buying stocks and bonds. So the question is, as this generation becomes wealthier and wealthier and has more income, where are they going to invest? Are they going to buy the stocks and bonds that your IRA is trying to sell as you're retired, or are they going to say no, we want to be in this new asset class? So anyways, he decided to jump in, and even since he's been in a few months, he's already up, I don't know, 15 or 20%. And now, at his country club, he's the star because, all these other octogenarians are learning about it. But, it's a process. The
Yep.
vast majority of people still don't know about it. They still don't understand it. They still haven't purchased it. And that's why, when somebody comes to me and says, did I miss the boat? I didn't get into Bitcoin at $10. Now it's 50,000. Should I still get in? I'm like, there's probably a long way to go, just as pension funds, mutual funds, older people, as the masses start coming in, because it's still owned by a very, very small percentage of the population. And even the people who own it, I think I saw the other day, of the people who own Bitcoin, 90 some percent, 93% have less than one Bitcoin. So,
Sure.
yeah.
And
that it's a very democratic investment, quite honestly. If you have enough money to buy $20 worth or $200 worth or $20,000 worth or 2 million, it doesn't matter. It's there and available for you. So those are the reasons I like it. Again, I'm not an investment advisor, so I'm not trying to like tell people what to do, but I always think generationally, right? So I'm thinking about, when when I buy an asset, it's something I'm going to hold for a long period of time. And I'm thinking more about, well, what is this going to mean to my children? What is this going to mean to my grandchildren?
Yes.
I'm not trading it. So I'm not saying, oh, next week I'm going to sell it if it goes up 10%. Like that's not my mentality. And you just have to ask yourself, with these long-term things, is it more likely to go up or go down? If to me, the longer out in the future you go, the easier it is to answer that question. If I ask you right now, Carter, in 30 years, do you think a dollar bill is going to be worth the same, more or less? I'm pretty sure you're going to tell me less. And
considerably less. Considerably less.
Who wants to buy a 30-year treasury that pays 3%? You're just guaranteed to lose money. What about gold? If I said, hey, if I give you this gold coin today, it's worth $1,800. 30 years from now, you think it's going to be worth more, or is it going to be worth less? And, exactly. So that's how I go about my own personal investment, because I'm not smart enough. I'm not sitting in front of a computer all day long trying to trade. I'm just trying to preserve and grow wealth, over a long period of time. And I think in that type of portfolio, there's certainly a place for crypto. I think that, again, there's some of these coins that are very speculative, and there's others like, Bitcoin, that's almost become like the reserve currency of crypto. It's almost like the global dollar for crypto. So, if you want to be in something relatively safe, even though it's still volatile, look at Bitcoin, look at Ethereum, look at Solana. If you want to be more speculative, there are other coins out there. There's also products out there that you can be highly leveraged. So, you can be as aggressive as you want. But again, that's not my advice.
Beautiful, beautiful. Let's talk. We only have a few minutes here, so our folks are focused. Our members are focused on offshore, obviously, as you are. I mean, you're one of the owners of gorgeous residential resorts all throughout Central America. One of which is in really a Bitcoin country, and that is we said Peru is major. It trades 16% of the people there use it, but El Salvador has made it legal tender, right? And
Yeah.
and that is, to me, that's significant, rightly or wrongly. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I think El Salvador was sort of the pioneer, and it was criticized by some of the IMF, the World Bank, and some other organizations. But I think so far, it's an experiment. It became legal tender in September of 2021. So
Yeah.
it's been around, 6 months. We're starting to see other countries follow suit.
Yes.
They might not be adopting it as their currency, but they're reducing barriers and saying, for example, that they won't tax the increases, right?
Yes.
Because if it's your currency, it's your currency. So El Salvador, if your Bitcoin becomes worth more by the time you spend it, it's not a taxable event. In the U.S., it is, by the way. So
Yes.
if you buy a Bitcoin at $30,000 and you spend it to buy a car when it's $50,000, you have to recognize that $20,000 gain. But other countries are saying the opposite. So we have El Salvador, we have Portugal,
Yes.
we have Bulgaria has been very aggressive on crypto. Panama, which has historically been the leader of finance in Latin America, doesn't want to lose that title to El Salvador, so it's rapidly moving to become more pro crypto. So we're going to see this trend continue, and I think it's going to push the whole agenda of making it more usable for more people. In El Salvador, for example, because it's legal tender, that means as a merchant, you must accept Bitcoin. So if you walk up to a little taco stand and it's got, tacos for sale for $1, because El Salvador's other currency is the US dollar.
Right.
They don't have their own currency anymore. You have to be able to scan your phone and pay for the dollar with a Bitcoin. And when you see that type of transaction increasing peer to peer, they what they refer to it in El Salvador as a closed ecosystem, right? I get Bitcoin, I save Bitcoin, I spend Bitcoin, and the next guy does the same, and so on and so forth. Then the Bitcoin doesn't ever really leave the system; it stays in their system. So I think that's going to continue to happen. People are going to see that El Salvador hasn't fallen apart because it said it was going to accept Bitcoin. It hasn't, attracted global drug dealers, money launderers, tax evaders, all the bad things you hear governments talking about. I mean, it's so phony that they bring these things up. I mean, the former CIA director of the United States came out and said that because of the nature of blockchain, where there's a permanent record of the transaction, that it's not something that is used by organized crime, right? They want to use suitcases filled with cash. They don't want to use Bitcoin that 10 years from now, somebody can still trace it back to them. So, I think these negative arguments about crypto are going to fall away.
Yes.
And, at some point it's going to be very, very mainstream. And by the time it is, if you wait until that point, that's fine as well. But, you're not going to be talking about trying to buy a Bitcoin. You're only going to be talking about trying to buy a Satoshi, because it's going to be substantially more. And I've seen models, in the hundreds of thousands, all the way up into the millions of dollars per Bitcoin. And, I think that's honestly, where we're headed. And, governments are speeding that process up by just turning their printing presses on, right? Because the more dollars the US government prints, the less value each of those dollars has. So in a sense, the US government is sort of boosting Bitcoin, even if it doesn't want to. That's the net effect of what they're doing.
So the bottom line here, and you've just done a great right across the globe there. That was outstanding, particularly for offshore club members who are always looking offshore very wisely. the bottom line here, as America's #1 asset protection attorney, you are saying to people, check Bitcoin out, check cryptocurrency out for asset protection. Can we say that?
Yeah, I think that's
Check it
fair.
out.
And, it's probably one of those things that, there are a number of good exchanges and wallets. You can go online and you can download a wallet and a phone app in 5 minutes. Some of them will give you, $5 or $10 of crypto for free just for signing up. And I think once you have a wallet that has any amount in it, that makes you much more, it makes you pay attention to it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
if you say, oh, that's nothing I want to be involved in, then you don't really care what the day-to-day prices are. But I can push a few buttons on my phone and I'm looking at literally hundreds of cryptocurrencies, most of which I don't even know and recognize. But I'm a lot more interested in seeing what they're doing than if you're not involved or participating. So get involved, participate, and it's not going to hurt you over the long run. It's going to help you to protect and preserve your wealth.
Joel, this has been great. It's been outstanding, because we have just learned some of the information that some very, very successful people have heard from you, and now we've heard it too. And you're kind enough to give it to us free, which is fantastic. It is just absolutely fantastic. So thank you. Great analysis. Great analysis. Thank
My
you.
pleasure, Carter. It's good to be with you, and I look forward to seeing you again next week.
We'll do it. All right. Thank you, Joel. All
Take
right,
care.
folks. There you have it. That's priceless advice. That's priceless advice from the guy who knows. That Joel is the I think of him as the Cerberus of solvency. You remember Cerberus, the guard dog that protects protects people's funds. You can't get better than Joel Nagel. So that's great advice. Use it, check it out, and we'll be back next week. As I always tell you, let's do this thing.